Welcome back to the Snow Point cast. So today we're going to be reviewing a really popular 2014 States deck, Darkrai Garb. Really powerful. Darkrai Yveltal Garb, actually. Used to be just Darkrai Garb, but with XY in the 2014 States format, we got the introduction of Yveltal EX, which is a really powerful dark attacker.
Yeah, and then Yveltal EX kind of proceeded to be really good for years.
Literally until it got rotated.
Yep.
So let's just start right off here. We're going to start with 2 Darkrai EX. So Darkrai is a really powerful card. I would argue one of the most powerful printed for its time. It was also played until it got rotated. So it has an ability called Dark Cloak. Whenever you have a dark energy attached to one of your Pokemon, that Pokemon has free retreat in play, which is really good ability.
Yeah, very strong. Then his attack Night Spear, which was 2 dark, 1 colorless for 90 damage, and 30 to 1 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. When that first came out, that card was insane.
Literally insane.
Very good. It won the Masters World Championship.
I think it went up to like $60 for the regular art when that set dropped.
It was expensive. And everyone was scrambling for them. But
yes.
yeah, very good. 90 damage to an active and 30 damage on the bench. Helps you set those 2 shots on EXs. Just very strong card. Dark Cloak is very strong.
And 3 for 120 damage is a lot of value. Like usually you hit like 130 damage per energy around. So getting that additional 30 snipe is really good.
Yeah, very strong card. 100 HP, relevant weakness.
Yeah, tank.
Resistance.
Getting free retreat is also like really good. Like having free retreat with your dark energies is hot. So you also play 2 Yveltal EX. Yveltal's got 2 really good attacks as well.
Yeah, when this card came out, it was like, okay, Darkrai got better. All right.
Buff Darkrai. Not only because the Yveltal resists fighting, which Darkrai is weak to, but Yveltal had 2 really good, really synergist attacks with Darkrai.
Yeah, so its first attack, Evil Ball, for 1 dark, 1 psychic, does 20 damage plus 20 more for each energy attached to your Yveltal.
And your opponent's active
and
Pokemon.
Your opponent's
so
active
both
Pokemon.
active Pokemon.
So, yeah, it was pretty insane. If you have like 3 energy on it, you're doing 80 plus however much they have, plus your deck has a bunch of damage multipliers.
Yeah, Muscle Band Laser, you're doing 1,000,000 for 2 energy.
Yeah, exactly. It was just a very strong Pokemon. And that second attack, Y Cyclone. So if you're not knocking out your opponent's Pokemon, you're probably going to do this attack instead. For 1 dark, 2 double colorless, or 2 colors energy does 90 damage, and you take an energy card attached to your Yveltal and move it to your bench. So what you do is if you can't knock them out, you do Y Cyclone because it's going to 2-shot them, but then you save the energy attached to your Yveltal and put it on something on the bench. Incredibly versatile attacker, really good.
Yeah, super good attacker. And Y Cyclone, not only are you conserving your energy, but you're also powering up your next attackers. So if you put that dark on a Darkrai, you're now just a attached dark patch away from attacking again.
Yeah, exactly. Just very, very strong card.
Yeah, both of those cards are really good. So the deck also played a 2/2 Garbodor. So Garbodor has an ability called Garbotoxin. If Garbodor has a tool attached to it, both players' Pokemon, yours and your opponent's, other than Garbodor, cannot use any abilities.
Yeah, so very relevant in the metagame. There's 2, like some of the main decks were Team Plasma, which locks off their like Deoxys and their Lugia's abilities. Also against Blastoise, it locks off their Deluge ability, which allows you to attach as many waters from your hands, so that completely shuts off the deck.
Yeah, it's also really important against Virizion Genesect. Virizion Genesect play a Virizion that has Verdant Wind that shuts off your lasers, which is a lot of your damage, and they can just outspeed you. So there were so many good abilities in the format that Garbotoxin just shutting them off is very good.
Exactly, and in a vacuum, if no one has abilities and you're attacking with Yveltal, Yveltal's probably winning most of those fights.
Yeah, and you know, Dark Cloak's a great ability, but it's not vital to your deck. You don't need to have free retreat to be doing what the deck wants to do.
Exactly.
So I'm actually going to talk about this Trubbish for a second. So this Trubbish is actually interesting because you can attack with it, and there are uses where it's good. So for DCE, it has a pound attack for 20, which seems pretty bad. But if you attach a DCE and a Muscle Band, and you're playing any Garbodor mirror, and your opponent starts with a Trubbish, you can kill their Trubbish with your Trubbish.
Get the greasy pound.
Kind of interesting. I mean, it's pretty bad, and it like never happens. But you can donk your opponent if they Trubbish pass, and you have a DC Muscle Band.
It does come up occasionally.
Very, very rarely. But, I mean, it's better than not having an attack.
Yeah.
Okay, so you play 1 Jirachi EX. So this is one of the staple consistency cards of the format. Stellar Guidance says when you bench Jirachi, you can search your deck for a supporter card and put it into your hand. It's got 90 HP and it's an EX, which is actually awful. That's really low for probably the lowest EX that's ever been printed, I even think, in this format. But, like, the consistency is also amazing. So that's the flip side of the card that is why you play it.
Yeah, exactly. Basically being able to turn all your Ultra Balls into another out for whatever supporter you want is very strong. Helps it so that you get, basically you're playing 4 extra with the Ultra Balls and then 1 extra with the Jirachi supporter outs on your first turn to not have a dead hand. So yeah, just a very good supporter utility card.
Yeah, super good. So you play Sableye as well. Sableye has 2 attacks. One of them is Confuse Ray, not the most common attack. Flip a coin of heads. The defending Pokemon is not confused. Really not useful, but in niche situations can be used. But the main attack you use it for is Junk Hunt.
Yeah, so for 1 dark, lets you pick up 2 item cards from your discard, add them to your hand. Very relevant, especially in like late game situations where you need some dark patches or just some cards that help you revitalize your situation.
Right.
But yeah, and you also, being a 1 prizer, you can lose it and still afford to lose 3 Yveltals or Darkrai's as your attackers. So yeah, just very, very relevant for getting back.
And there's a lot of things that you can do with Sableye. When we get a little more to the items, it's going to make a little more sense. But it also keeps you consistent because you play Random Receiver. But like you were saying, it can also win you games. Like if you need a catcher to win the game, you can just Junk Hunt Dowsing Machine catcher. If you don't have an end, I'm going to have 2 catcher flips to potentially win me this game.
Exactly, yeah.
So you play an Absol as well.
Yep, Absol. Same within the Team Plasma deck. You're just you're using it as a cheap attacker for 1 dark, 1 colorless. So basically an attach plus a dark patch. If your opponent has a full bench, you hit for 120 damage. So then if you're running Muscle Band on it and Hypnotoxic Laser plus Virbank City Gym, you're hitting 170. So it's going to be just a cheap knockout on an EX for out of nowhere pretty much for a 1 pricer.
And it's a good Y-Cyclone target as well. If you Y-Cyclone a Dark to Absol, then it only needs 1 more and then you're attacking with it, which is really powerful. So you play 1 Baby Yveltal as well. So Baby Yveltal has 2 attacks, has 1 Oblivion Wing, 1 Dark for 30. Attach a Dark Energy card from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. So that acceleration is actually really powerful. It's the main reason you play the card because everything in your deck is also able to put darks in the discard. Like you play 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Juniper because Dark Patch is so good. This Yveltal just says, hey, if you have 2+ darks in your discard, why not accelerate more than 1 in a turn?
Exactly. And it can also put chip damage on their active Pokemon, which can set up for that knockout next turn while also accelerating your board state's energy. So it's just very, very strong one.
And 130 is not easy to knock out.
It's not super easy without them investing something decent into it, which then if you knock it with your Yveltal, that could really put it behind on their resources.
So Darkness Blade is also okay. It's not so bad. Pretty uncommon to attack with it, but 3 dark for 100. Flip a coin. If tails, this Pokemon can attack during your next turn. So there's niche situations where it's useful. Usually don't want the extra energy on there. That energy attachment's kind of a lot.
Yeah, a lot of the times where you use it is if you're trying to score a knockout, but you don't want to expose your EX, especially against one of their non-EX attackers, you can use the Yveltal's Dark Display to score that knockout. So yeah, it did happen, but it's not usually what you would want to invest onto.
Yeah, for sure. So the deck plays 4 Ultra Ball as well. This is, again, can search out Jirachi, but also searches out your Garbodor, searches out your Trubbishes, get your Darks in the discard.
Yeah, very, very relevant to discard your Dark energy to the discard pile so that you can use Dark Patch or even Oblivion Wing on the Baby Yveltal. Basically, that's like why it was there.
Yeah, and like almost every deck played 4 Ultra Ball, unless it was Plasma.
Yeah, exactly. And
really good
for most matchups too, you want that Garbodor online turn 2.
Yeah, especially for Blastoise. If you don't have a Garbodor turn 2 versus Blastoise,
you're gonna be.
That's rough. You're getting knocked out. Okay, so the deck plays 4 Dark Patch as well. Staple in almost every dark deck. The card's just so good. Attach a basic Dark Energy card from your discard pile to one of your bench Dark Pokemon. So again, with Ultra Ball, with Juniper, you get those Darks in the discard, and then you Dark Patch. And if you even want to, if you have a ton of Darks in the discard, you can Junk Hunt for double Dark Patch and just load your board with Darks.
Yeah, incredible card. Incredible card since it came out to even today.
When it came out in the same set as Darkrai, people were losing their minds. They're like, this is the combo right here.
Yeah, it was. They very much wanted Darkrai EX to be good.
Yes. I think almost every Darkrai that they printed, they've been like, let's make this good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you play 4 Laser as well.
So Hypnotoxic Laser poisons your opponent's active Pokemon, and then flip a coin if heads they're asleep. So main reason you use this is you also run Virbank City Gym, a stadium card that says any poison damage you do, it does an extra 2 damage counters between turns, and that's both for you and your opponent. So yeah, basically for an item card, if you have that stadium in play, you're doing an extra 30 damage, and if they don't retreat that Pokemon out of the active, they're going to take another 30 damage.
And then, which is really technically 90, because if they're not retreating it, it's 30, 60 back to you, 90 back to them.
Exactly. So it's just an incredible damage source, like 1 item card for plus 30 damage. You also have a lot of potential that if you can't knock out their Pokemon, it's a 25% chance that they'll stay asleep going into their turn. So yeah, you can just stop them from attacking.
And if they sleep, sometimes just putting a Sableye up and Junk Hunting is better than putting up an attacker.
Yeah, exactly. Like it definitely can buy you time, but 30 damage was no joke.
Yeah, really good. That's why I play for it. It's just an amazing card. Okay, so the deck also plays 4 Muscle Band. Muscle Band is kind of the combo with Laser. It lets you hit really important numbers with both Darkrai and Yveltal. So Yveltal hits 3 for 90 with the Muscle Band. That's 110. Laser is 140, and with either a Darkrai snipe or a Tails flip on the Laser, that's 170, which is a massive number. A lot of the main attackers in this format had 170 HP.
Yeah, hitting 170 HP is incredibly relevant, and just having an item card like this deck was very fluid. So being able to get all your different damage multipliers at once was very important, so you can score those knockouts. So just running 3 Muscle Band and those 4 lasers, that's an extra 50 damage that you can be dealing each turn.
Lots of damage multipliers. Alternatively, Muscle Band can be used as a tool for Garbodor. You don't really want to do it if you can afford to, because Float Stone's a much better tool to have on. But sometimes locking those abilities is more important than having the Muscle Band.
Yeah, definitely.
So we still play 4 Floatstone. This is your optimal tool card on a Garbodor. Really good card, Floatstone. If it's attached to one of your Pokemon, it has free retreat. Garbodor's got 3 retreat. So free is much better than 3. I'll say that.
Exactly. Just it helps you keep your guys fluid. Your Dark Patch only attaches to bench Dark Pokemon, so if you get a Pokemon knocked out, it's better to bring up something with a Floatstone, especially like a Garbodor, so you can play Dark Patch onto your attacker that you're going to use that turn. Just it makes your overall deck more fluid. And
Yveltal's got 2 retreat too, so I mean, if you have to put it on a baby Yveltal, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, exactly. Just it keeps your deck more mobile for your bench Pokemon's attaches.
So deck plays 2 Bike. I'm going to let you talk about Bike because you guys played Bike in your 2013 Darkrai list.
Yeah, so basically the way that Bike works is if you have less than 4 cards in your hand, you draw till you have 4 cards in hand. But that doesn't sound great, but where it's good is that it's an item card. So you still play your supporter for turn and then also play Bikes to draw 1 to 4 cards. So what you can do is this deck is very discard heavy with things like Ultra Ball, and your cards are pretty much very fluid. So
you can play almost every non-supporter card except for Garbodor right away.
Exactly, like the Hypnotoxic Lasers and the Dark Patches you didn't necessarily want to burn, but you could. And it lets you hit into those combos of, let's say I need to get a Dark Patch, Hypnotoxic, and a Muscle Band this turn. It lets you play all your resources from your hand down, and then use Bikes to draw extra cards, and then you play a supporter for turn as well. It just
lets you really dig.
Yeah.
So instead of digging that 7 with the Juniper, if you can get your hand down to 0 after the Juniper, and then use a Bike, you're seeing 11 cards, which is a ton of your deck.
Exactly, it's just a lot more relevant, and even if you have to discard resources that you don't want to, you can still bring them back with Sableye's Junk Hunt. You can even bring back Bicycle, like a Bicycle Dark Patch with Sableye's Junk Hunt to keep your next turn very mobile. Or
Bicycle Ultra Ball if you really need cards and don't have anything in your discard. At least you can Junk Hunt for something. You know?
Exactly.
Okay, so you played 2 Catcher 2. So I actually made this list with Chase Maloney. It's so funny that Trevor's here too, because Chase and Trevor have been partners forever. But we talked about 2 Catcher and how it's really important because not only is this format have a ton of benched attackers and bench support Pokemon that you need to take out, like Blastoise, like certain Plasma Pokemon, like if your opponent's charging a Lugia, if you can get a knockout on that can change the pace of the game so that you can potentially bring back a game. But catchers can be also just a win out. Like if your opponent is forcing you to play a 7 prize game and you've killed 2 EX Pokemon and they're forcing you to kill that baby Pokemon that you really don't need to kill for the game, catcher gives you a way around that so that you can just potentially take the rest of the game without even worrying about it.
Requires a coin flip to pull that bench Pokemon, but it can be win or lose, and at least you have a shot to win the game with that coin flip opposed to not. And if you need multiple tries, you can always Junk Hunt some of them.
Yeah, you can Junk Hunt or Dowsing Machine too. I always like to think of Dowsing Machine as the 3rd of everything. So instead of playing 3 Muscle Band, you're playing 4, 3 Floatstone, you're playing 4 with a Dowsing Machine technically, and it could be a 3rd catcher as well. Okay, so we're getting into the 1-ofs now. So you play 1 of Professor's Letter. Professor's Letter says, search your deck for 2 Dark Energy and put them into your hand. So that can be really good with Ultra Ball, but also good with Juniper. Sometimes if you start with a Letter, you can just go Letter plus 2 Dark, Juniper. Now, if I draw double Dark Patch, they're live.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to run too many of it, but playing 1 was very good because you could also Junk Hunt for it, and it's like you draw that, and it's like you drew 2 Dark Energies at the same time.
It can be a +2 in your hand, so it's a 1 card that gives you a +1 in your hand. And if you have a combo where you go, let's say I have an Ultra Ball and 5 other cards in my hand, I have 2 Ultra Balls and 3 other cards, and I need 1 more. But if one of those cards is a Letter, all of a sudden you get 2 Ultra Ball searches.
Yeah, just very, very strong 1-of card for sure.
Yeah, really good card. So you play a Random Receiver as well. You play a pretty thin supporter line. You only play 4 Juniper, 4 and 1 Colress, but Random Receiver was so that you could Junk Hunt for a supporter potentially if you needed to.
Exactly, yeah. You just pull that Random Receiver back from discard with Junk Hunt, so it keeps us in the late game. If you're out of supporters, you need that last dig. Sableye really made a lot of plays live in the late game just by playing these 1-of cards. So yeah, it's just an extra supporter out essentially that you can Junk Hunt for.
Yeah, super good. So deck also plays one Enhanced Hammer. Enhanced Hammer has a couple uses. It's really good against Plasma, of course, because Plasma plays only special. But there's some other decks in the format, like Big Basic Garbodor that plays double colorless energy. DCE was just really common in the format.
Yeah, a lot of Yveltal decks, or all the Yveltal decks also play double colorless energy because it's really good for Yveltal. So yeah, just being able to knock off that energy can be the difference between you losing a Pokemon and you not losing a Pokemon.
Right. And what people usually did with Yveltal mirrors is you'd go put a Yveltal up with a Dark and a DCE, Cyclone the Dark so that I can attach and then attack next turn. But if you Enhanced Hammer that DCE, that Yveltal is stranded there.
Exactly. So yeah, just being able to remove that energy from board can be very crucial sometimes.
Yeah, it can be really good. So it brings us to the A-Spec. Plays a Dowsing Machine. Dowsing Machine's a great A-Spec in this list. I'll let you talk about Dowsing Machine.
Yeah, Dowsing Machine lets you discard 2 cards from your hand and pull a trainer card from your discard back to your hand. So it's very relevant because it allows you to run basically an extra copy of some very crucial item cards. Like having that 5th Dark Patch is super relevant. Having that extra Float Stone, extra Muscle Bend. Like there's so many cards that this deck needs as far as like scoring those knockouts. So being able to have just a universal like Joker of it can be anything, right? Like, and just having that extra
Joker card. That's such an interesting way to describe Dowsing Machine. I like that.
Yeah, that's always how I felt about Dowsing Machine. Is just
wild
a Joker
card.
Yeah, it's a wild card. It's a Joker. It gives you the extra whatever you need. Like if you get that Hypnotoxic and that Muscle Bend for your combo, but you miss that Dark Patch, bang, Dowsing Machine's a Dark Patch. Especially when you're discarding your cards so fast. It's pretty much live as far as any card you want.
And junk hunting for Dowsing Machine is actually really good because not only does it like open you up for getting the resources out of your discard, it lets you adapt to what your opponent does during their next turn. You never know what they're going to do. I mean, if they have another tool for their Garbodor and you need to get rid of it or whatever, like Dowsing Machine just lets you adapt to whatever your opponent does during their next turn.
Exactly, yeah. And being able to be flexible as far as what you do is very, very, very important just for any deck.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, that leaves us with the supporter counts. So once again, pretty much every deck in this format runs 4 Juniper.
Juniper.
And also 4 N. So 4 Juniper, discard your hand, draw 7. Very good in this deck because it discards your dark energies. So you can use dark patches immediately or your Oblivion Wing immediately. And drawing 7, of course, well, who doesn't want to draw 7 cards?
7 cards is pretty good.
And then also N, shuffle your hands, shuffle both players' hands in their decks and they draw equal to the remaining prize cards. So once again, just early game, shuffle your hand, draw 6, very good. But then in the late game, you can disrupt your opponent to try and buy that extra turn to score that knockout. So yeah, just once again, pretty much every deck in this format run 4 of each of those.
Good early game, good late game. Something interesting to note with N in this format is, especially when you play 1 prize attackers, you can force your opponent to take 5 prizes and then end them under Garb, and that is so strong. Ending your opponent under Garb means if they have any ability-based Pokemon like Jirachi or anything that they can potentially get out of, they're just basing on their top deck. If you don't draw something out of those 2 cards, you are Dungeon Rings.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just very relevant to lock your opponent, especially if you get behind a turn. Like that's how you get ahead. Is just being able to end them into a dead hand and then keep pushing forward.
Yeah, and Garb is very strong.
Yeah. The deck also runs 1 copy of Colress. Just kind of as an alternative supporter.
8 supporters is really low. So, I mean, playing 9 is low, but it's not as bad as 8.
Yeah, exactly. It gives you that extra supporter out. And it's something that if you find yourself with a full bench, you can use the Jirachi to search out the Colress if don't have Garbodor online. And then that can get you a full bench. Your deck wants to drop down a Pokemon on the bench pretty quickly. And a lot of decks, other than like something like Blastoise, we're also pretty bench heavy. So it can be Colress for 10 in the late game to help you pull together that combo.
Right. And you only play 1 because you also play Random Receiver. So you really don't want to hit that Colorless off your Random Receiver. If it happens, it happens. But you mostly want to hit a Juniper and N if you're Random Receivering for a supporter.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings us down to the energy cards. So 4 double colorless energy.
Every time we talk about this card, it's literally just like, oh yeah, so this is pretty much the best card Pokemon's ever printed.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the best cards for sure. It counts, so for Yveltal's Evil Ball, doesn't count energy cards, it counts just total energy. So when you play in double colorless energy on the Yveltal, it counts as 2 energy, so it's a plus 40 damage onto Yveltal. Also makes Y Cyclone easier to use, so it's just...
That kind of acceleration with Dark Patch is what made Yveltal EX so good, because you could go, I have no energy on my Yveltal, to I have 4 in a Muscle Band, and you have 3, and now I'm hitting you for 160.
Exactly, just incredibly crucial for Yveltal there. And then the basic dark count was 7 dark in total. Basically, 7 dark. It's
7 dark's pretty stable.
It's what you had room for, and it makes your Pokemon attack.
So you get room. I mean, you play the letter too, so I mean, technically you play 8, but
you have 8 outs
right.
to 8 outs to dark energy. which, you know, is reasonable amount of outs when you're drawing through.
And you play patches too, so I mean, seven might seem low, but it's not actually that low at all.
Yeah, it was always like a fine count for the day. People ran between 7 and 9 usually. This is a bit on the lower side, but you get a few more cards.
Right, and the benefit of playing more is you get that consistency of getting darks in your discard so that you can dark patch them, but playing the fewer, I think 7's fine, and like 7 allows you to play the like catchers and the cool stuff like bikes and enhanced hammer. Like, I don't know, energy's lame. You can play 10, but I'd rather play cool stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Cool stuff is cool. It helps you win games.
Cool stuff is cool.
Just draw your dark energies.
Just draw, dude. Okay, so that brings us to a wrap on this deck profile. Thanks for tuning in, and if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and we'll get around to them.